What's up, fellow lords of gaming, and welcome back to another episode of Marvel Future Fight. So today what I'm going to do is a series, I guess, that may end up starting for this channel for Marvel Future Fight. I'm really enjoying Marvel Future Fight more than I am just about any of my other mobile platform games. Well, Ni no Kuni is up there, but what I want to do is I want to talk to you guys about building characters, and specifically today we're going to focus on Blade. So this should be really cool for a lot of the players who are out there. The video might take a little bit long. I'll try to break things down and get it to it quickly, but we're going to talk about specifically how you build characters. So number one, besides getting to the point where you actually build the character and got him up to tier 2 level 60, which isn't very much to do, right? Because essentially when you're building a character, you're basically trying to acquire biometrics that you're going to utilize to grow the character from stage from the first instance where you got it up to, you know, building out the gear sets and things like that, and then advancing the character to tier 2. So, and the process repeats itself in tier 3, and then or awakening, and it repeats itself again in tier 4. So let's take a look at that overall. So basically we get to see what our character looks like at tier 2. We've got him enhanced. We don't have a lot sitting on him. We've got ESO 8s and things like that from just getting him to tier 2. I dislike this uniform, but it is his newest uniform and his best uniform. So we're going to take a look at our character and our detail screens, and we're going to be able to identify some things inside here. Number one, every player at a minimum wants to be able to cap out on 2 specific stats as a new player. That's ignore defense and reduce cooldown duration. So now you should be able to get here mostly by just building out common sense cards and stuff like that. But your stats, your other ones, the important ones being like your attack speed, crit rate, crit damage, and your dodge, along with either physical attack or energy attack. For Blade is going to be a physical attack, and then HP as well. So now what you're basically looking at is your cards and your account is going to affect these differently amongst players, right? So what that is going to take a look. So now Blade, specifically for this character, I can see that he's low on his reduced cooldown duration and he's low on his crit rate. You pretty much want these at like 75%. Now, does that mean that you need to max out every character's skill, critical rate, or crit damage, or every stat across the board? No, I tend to do that simply because of the way the new builds happen for characters. But you can look at certain characters and you can look at their skills to see that maybe a character, for instance, might have like crit damage increases or crit rates that are up the entirety of the time while they're attacking. For Blade, we don't see any of that happening inside his character kit. So essentially what you want to be making sure that you do is that Blade has those all filled out, because he doesn't have any buffs that are giving him like crit rate or crit attack basically across the field. So what we're going to do with Blade is we need to take a look at first the 4th gear on this character. So always come over here and take a look at the 4th gear, because you can get some additional bonus stats, bonus from changing the 4th gear stats. So right now we can see Blade is getting a crit damage stat on his 4th gear. So let's go back, take a look at his details, and you can see here goes the crit damage, which is maxed out at 200%. If you go show exceeded stats in here though, and you click on this icon, you can see where you're topping up on this character. So for instance, with Blade, he's at 45% over the top off at 200%. No point in being over the top off, right? So what we can do is on his 4th gear, we can come inside here and we can change that and re-roll that for crit rate. Really easy, just to go in here and say, let's re-roll this and let's get a crit rate stat inside there. They added this auto change feature inside there, which was really good because, you know, essentially you used to have to re-roll it manually every single time. Now we don't have to do that. So now I can go back inside his details and I can look and see that I've got a 68.81% crit rate increase now. That makes So here we are at about 68.81% crit rate, which basically will get us pretty close to the 75% cap, right? That's what we want to hit. So now how can you hit that 68.75% crit? There's a number of ways. First off, we want to take a look at his uniform bonuses, right? Because as you level up your character, there are going to be a number of uniform options that are going to go into this, and this is why they're important. So for instance, right here off the bat, we can see that dodge with the Colossus uniform is there. We can see that Captain Marvel, this is an energy attack, and we know Blade is not an energy attack based character. character. So we're going to want to change that. Now, however you choose to do this, whether you go physical attack or HP, is completely up to you. Don't go physical defense, don't go energy defense, because these are two stats that really don't make sense for you to roll into. They're really not that helpful. You want to be either rolling into physical attack or HP. Personally, I like to go into HP, but for this character build for Blade, I'm going to do either one. Whichever one comes up first is the one I'm just going to be cool with. So HP's there, right? So now on the second stat, we can see that as Iron Fist, as HP as well. You've got some other stats on here that you could roll into. So for instance, his ignore defense is already high, but his skill cooldown isn't. This is the part where you're going to have to determine for your account which is more important for you in terms of the way you play. I know that I can fill out this skill cooldown in other ways, so I'm going to leave it at HP, especially since I know his skill cooldown isn't that far from cap. If yours is really far from cap, then you probably want to focus on this, because the ability to use more skills is going to be more beneficial than the HP pool that you have. So the next one, we have two lock stats in here. So for this character, specifically for this video, I'm going to do this inside here and just level up the uniform overall, so that way we can just complete it. So the uniform upgrade option at legendary is going to be Hela Asgard Invasion. This is a really good uniform. You have a number of ways you can do this. You either have the BIOS, the the Norn Stones, or the uniform upgrade kits. And there's a number of ways you can get the uniform upgrade kits. The easiest way to get the uniform upgrade kits is the support shop, in my opinion, because it's the freest way. You also have upgrade tickets. I would not suggest using any of your mega uniform upgrade tickets or even your upgrade tickets for characters that are free to play, where the BIOS are easily available and obtainable. Use these for the characters that are behind paywalls, okay? Whether they're crystal or dollar spins. So let's upgrade this for Blade. And so we've got Asgard Hela Defense, right? So there we go. So now we can see that I basically free rolled into dodge for his fourth stat here. There's going to be other stats that you can use. None of these are worth it in that. Dodge is simply the only one worth using inside there, okay? So then we've got his fifth uniform stat inside here that we're going to roll on, okay? So let's do this. Now, because of my account, I don't need to use 100% of my uniform XP chips. I know that I don't. You need to understand where you're at in your VIP level, where you're at in your alliance and stuff like that, to see how much you pretty much are getting for the bonuses. I'm going to re-roll this so that way, like for my account, I only used to have about half of the XP chips that are needed. Where your account is going to change this. So be aware of that, okay? Like your account is determining this factor inside it. So I'm going to change this, and you can see basically I got the uniform upgrade basically for half. Now the Scarlet Witch Uncanny Avengers is going to be the next uniform upgrade for this character. It's a pretty terrible uniform upgrade for a uniform option, mostly because that is an old uniform. So like for instance, I have that uniform. I have that uniform, and it's one of those things that, like, if I didn't have the uniform, I wouldn't go back in here and buy the uniform in order to get this stat. I hope that makes sense, because this is not a good uniform for Scarlet Witch anymore. She has a really good uniform in terms of WandaVision. So if you're a new player, this might not be available, a uniform that you want to go. Meanwhile, if I looked at Colossus, this is his best uniform for free-to-play players if you had Colossus. If I looked at Captain Marvel, this is her newest uniform. This is a good uniform. I looked at Iron Fist, all the way down, and you were basically looking at good uniforms for characters. But then you get to this last one, going back and purchasing Scarlet Witch's Uncanny Avengers uniform doesn't make sense. But then we have, again, the last stat is going to have a bunch of stats that basically help us fill out our character. So crit rate happens to be one of those stats. So we can basically top up on our cup by rolling into crit rate. So let's see how lucky we get here. Jesus. So we got crit rate pretty quickly. So now let's go back into our character detail screen over here. and you can see that I'm topped off now on crit rate, and you can look at the exceeded stats. I'm over by about 6.96%. So the only thing I need to be concerned about on my character is this number right here. He's still not at the cap of 50% for his cooldown duration, right? So that's fine. So now we can make up for that inside his Uru. So we want to look at the skills first off, right? So we're going to basically max out the skills overall for character. Like if you're going to T3 a character, might as well just max out everything that you can, because you're T3ing that character, which means that you have high usability for the character overall. Otherwise, you really shouldn't be T3 in a character if you don't have the resources to do it. So we max out the skills and so forth inside here. We can see that they all are physical attack. If you're not aware of what type of damage your character is doing, simply just look here, physical attack. Then we can look at the type over here. We can increase this type in a number of ways. The easiest way to do this enhancement is basically if you play story mode every day like you should be, most likely you're going to end up with these type enhancement tickets. And the type enhancement tickets will allow you to basically forego any use of the gold, forego the use of any type enhancement kits, and just get right to the endpoint. Now, Blade is a good character, but he's not a character that I necessarily want to get to stage 6. I wish I had a stage 5, but for now, the highest one I have is stage 4. This is going to enable him to do more damage to speed type characters. So you can see it increases damage to speed types and decreases damage received from speed types. Now, if I want to try an enhancement with just the enhancement materials, then you can go about doing that inside here, and I was successful, thank God. And you can see that I'm basically at type 2 now, or type stage 5, and I could try to roll for stage 6. Let's see if we get lucky. Nope, no luck there. So no joy, right? So that's essentially what you're looking at. Get that bonus that you can from those speed types. Now, ISO 8 is going to be important inside here because you basically want to make sure that you have a set bonus inside the characters. Now, if you're on a new stage account, you can roll an auto set change for any one of these 3 options. Only these 3 options. If you're rolling for any of the other set bonuses, then I don't know what the hell you're doing. Like realistically, the most I've seen other people use some of these other options for is basically cap out inside of like ranking events and stuff like that. But this is not really that important for you to do. So right now I'm sitting with an overdrive. That's really good. But you notice set bonus stage 6 is in effect. This is not necessarily a good set bonus stage for me to have a tier 3 at. So there's going to be a couple of things that you want to do. I'm not going to show all of this because it doesn't really make sense. But the first thing I want to do once I get 5 set ESOs set in here, and there's another video I've done about ESOs, go ahead and look in the video log and you'll be able to see where I've done an ESO video. It's the setting of which ESO and how to equip those ESOs and the importance of them. But what you want to do once you have the ESOs inside here is you're going to quick enhance the characters. So this is just a little bit from before. That's going to allow you quick enhance to get them +5, and then you'll have to relay awaken them so that way you can get them to red stars throughout, right? So you can basically see that. Now, once you do all of these, you'll get to a set bonus stage 12. So let me show you that. Now, so you can see here that we're basically at set bonus stage 12, which give us the maximum amount for the stats for the overall bonus set effect. Now, you have to be aware that every time that you level these up, depending on the number of stars you have per ESO, then it's going to change whether it's like set bonus stage 10, 12, 11, so forth and so forth, right? But if you're maxing out a character and you have the resources because you're getting a character tier 3, this is essentially where you want to be working forward to, so that way you get the most out of the set bonus. Now, if a character has an artifact that you have available, then you want to go ahead and match that stat up and look at it and equip it. It doesn't really make a difference. Even if you just have like a third one inside here that you want to use, go ahead and do that as well. But the artifacts, they can help a character in some sense, and they could help not help a character. What we want to be looking at after this is the Uru. So we're going to skip past the custom gear part for a second. Well, no, you know what? Let's go back to the custom gear part. So inside here, you can see that I have a basic generic obelisk on Blade. Now, you don't have to have CTPs on characters, but if you're going to equip a character with a tier 3, you might as well make sure that you're going to have a CTP that's usable for that character. Otherwise, you want to choose the best obelisk that you can have. Now, mostly you want to go with proc friendly CTPs or obelisk, so that way you're getting the most out of your attack stats. The other two stats matter as well, especially because of how much they're going to boost your overall stats. Meaning, like for Blade, I just have a movement speed CTP on here, but if I was to have, for instance, say like a CTP that had dodge or crit damage, crit damage, like so for instance, this one has crit rate 22.9%. well, it's immunity to web effect, which is nice for if I'm going up against Spider-Man and some of his spider friends, but it's not going to help out any place else. It also has a proc damage, isn't good, but I could equip this onto him instead of trying to roll into crit rate for some of those other places that I showed you, because this would have gave me that 22.9%. Okay, so that's essentially that, right? But for the custom gear, what you're mostly going to try to align this gear to is towards where the character is going to be used the most. So for instance, I'll let you know right off the bat that, the way it used to be looked at mostly is like if you were going to use a character inside PvP, there were a couple of CTPs that you wanted to use. Like it was going to be CTP of authorities, were mostly PvP landscape, right? If you were going to use like a CTP of patience or something like that, which is just going to increase your dodge and your patience, those, it's really weird to look at these because they're not even good anymore. Like CTPs of destruction were looked at as like a go-between, whether you're going to use the character in PvP and PvE. CTP of rages, in my opinion, CTP of rages were pretty much for those of us who were pretty shit at trying to to get a proc on a character at the appropriate time. So like if we have a non-proc friendly character like Iron Man, for instance, where you just can't get the rotation down, you put a CTP of rage on that character, it doesn't make a difference. When he procs in there, it's easier. Or for instance, for Blade, what I'm going to probably do is put my CTP of energy on him, and there's a couple of reasons why. So for instance, there's a note in here for you to kind of start to understand whether or not a character is going to use a CTP of energy. And the way I used to look at it, and the way I kind of still do, is whether it's going to increase the chain hit damage of a character by 30% when attacking, right? So you can see that chain hit damage. That means that a character is going to be doing, they tend to have a lot of hits on attacks. So I know for Blade, because I look at the skills, that this is probably going to be something for him. So I'm going to equip that onto Blade for now. Now here goes a little bit of like a trick for you guys. If you're not aware of what custom gear you should be using for a character, it's not as difficult as it may seem for you to figure that out. Like realistically, all you need to do is go inside of like the character selection icon there and look up that character. So like for instance, I want to see Blade inside here. Let me change this to combat characters, and here goes Blade right here. So now with Blade selected, I can look at some of the other players inside here, and I can see what CTPs they have equipped as well. So like he's got a mighty CTP of energy equipped in there. He's in the top percentage, and like I can go down the list and kind of look at those, right? Now be aware that sometimes the event ranking can be a little misleading. That's the best way I could say it. It can be a little misleading because a lot of people will try to just build out characters just so that way they could get to that #1 ranking event. You get what I'm saying? So another way you can do that is simply come over to your friends list. All right. And this is something I used to do in the beginning a lot, and I'm not going to hide the fact that I did this because it's something that's really useful for you players, right? So for instance, like Cynic Alex, Beast Mode Gaming, Moonbro, Forgo Nation. These were some of the guys that I followed quite a bit, and I still follow quite a bit in terms of, Marvel Future Fight content. So for instance, if I really wanted to see like how some of my favorite YouTubers were going to be building out their characters, I can immediately just go inside here, type in their gamer name and stuff like that, and then I can see their characters inside here. So that way I can take a look at their rosters, right? They're really easy. Now I can see the rosters that he has equipped. I don't know what he's using this for, but I can see that he has a roster here. Now I can take a look down his list. This is really simple and easy, right? And so I can see that he's got Blade. He's got Blade equipped in here with some CTPs. You can see the CTP Uru, Enchanted Urus has. I can look at his set effect that he has, and I can even look at like his CTP of Rage that he has equipped in there, right? So he's got a CTP of Rage put on his character, right? Now, and you can do that with just about anybody as long as you know what their name is. For instance, like if you don't know their name, it doesn't really necessarily help for you to look at it. So I can look at Cynic Alex inside here, and it'll pull up that person's character list, and now I can see exactly, you know, what's going on with this character and how they've created some of the things. You can see he's got a CTP of energy as well on his character, and you can see his Uru equipped as well, along with his ESO set inside here as well. So it's really just that damn simple, guys. Like, I mean, trying to understand how you should be building out a character, it's not that difficult. I just want more players to kind of understand this, right? So now what you can get into on the character as well is the build out. This is where it's going to be the most time consuming, the most costly is when you're trying to level that character's gear from stage 20 to 25, because you want to be getting Essence of Dimension, you want to be getting Titan component packs, and these, they're not as hard as they used to be to come by, but they can be for new players, especially BAM and stuff like that, the Black Antimatter. So a couple of ways to receive these items, guys. The easiest one is play story mode. Ultimate story mode rewards these at an exceptional clip. Shout out to Beast Mode Gaming for pointing out, within a month you can gain as much Essence of Dimension and Titan component packs as required to level up at the very minimum one tier 3 character. I'm going to be honest with you, it was something I was ignoring forever, and Beast Mode did a video on it and I was like happily surprised by it. So I'm going to level these up simply through normal enhancement. It's really simple to do it. The character's level does not meet the requirement. Oh, my bad. I can't believe I did that. So I can't level up the requirement. Why can't I level? Because he's only level 60. So basically I have to enhance his potential, right? So there's a couple of ways that you can go about enhancing the potential of a character. Number one, you can come inside here, enhance potential. And this is, I can tell you right off the bat that this is tedious as hell, because it's going to use Cosmic Q fragments. It's going to use Norn Stones of Chaos. It's going to use Black Antimatter. I typically try to use Norn Stones of Chaos in order to do this. This will upgrade the character, and then once you do it, here goes the sad part about this, right? And I'm going to kind of skip this so that way you guys can see it, not see it. Once you upgrade this either through here or through here, and you try to play around with the, you know, percentages, I usually just go full out bull 100%. You then have to have more bios. Now you don't have to have the character specific bios, although I think they made the system now where the bios, if you use the bios of that character, it's a lower percentage. Yeah, it's kind of annoying to do that. Another way you can do this is if you get lucky and get a potential enhancement ticket that's level 6 or any of the other ones, then this will effectively raise a character's potential all the way to level 6. Now, how do you get those potential enhancement tickets? They don't come around very often, and they cannot be used on natural tier 2 or tier 3 characters. Now, I'm going to use this on Blade. Mostly because I just want the character at tier 3. So that's essentially the better way, because I don't lose out on BIOS, I don't lose out on gold, I don't lose out on other resources as well. I'm anticipating, you know, that we're gonna have you know, Thor and the slew of those characters come down, which is probably going to be mostly a uniform update, except for with the exception of Thor, Jane Foster, but we'll see. So that allows me to get back into this, because now my character is at level 70 with their you know, full enhancement. So now I can go inside here, and this is going to be reflective of every enhancement stage inside there. So you can see it was required level 60 to go up the next stage to 21. It'll be 64, 66, 68, and then finally 70 3 for each of the 1 stages in between. So now you can just go normal enhance, and here you're basically at the you're at the whim of the gods. The RNG gods are inside here. It says 3 for each success attempt inside here that goes in. So for instance, if I was to just do the 20,000 inside here and I rolled, we can basically see how much, you know, I only got 20% of that. So typically I'll just relay enhance these. As long as I have about 3,000 of each of these, then I know that I'm good. I don't tend to worry about black antimatter as much anymore, but when you see numbers like that, 19, you really want to cry sometimes when you see those numbers. So that's essentially raising up these levels. So now I can like go back to the next one, relay enhance. Let's pray to the God. So you see 2, cool, yay. 12, all right, cool. 15, Jesus, come on. 10, yay, especially on the 4th roll. Those are really cool. And then finally on the last one, I got a 20, which just feels like pain. You know what I mean? Like it literally is pain when you see those numbers. 7, cool. It's on the first one. 5 on the second one. On the 4 on the third one is really awesome. 18, 4 on the final one, that's awesome. So you thank the gods when you see like a low number. As you go up stages, it becomes more and more expensive. So at the higher stages, you want to see lower numbers essentially, right? Like when I basically get into stage 5 of this, where it's rolling, I don't want to see a 25. I don't want to see a 30. I don't want to see an 18. I want to see something low, you know? So 11 on the first one, not so bad. 14 on the second one. 11 on the third is pretty good, right? 16 on the 4, 2 on the 5th, I'm happy with that. So this was overall for me a good roll on increasing Blade's options, his uniform gear levels. So now one of the final stages that we get into is equipping Uru. There's a couple of things that you want to do specifically on a character that I had mentioned in my Uru video. That's amplification. I usually go for a chain amplification the first time that I roll a character. I'm really only looking to get at the minimum 4 of the slots amplified. If I can get 4 slots amplified, then I'm pretty happy and I'll move on from there. I'm going to amplify all 4 pieces of the gear. It's really important that you amplify all 4 pieces of gear. You want to maximize on the stats that you can possibly get, right? Now, if this is a character that you really like you just really love the character and you know that you're going to be playing this character quite a bit in different game modes, it's in the meta, you know, you're really enthralled by the character, then you can chain amplify this to maybe 5 gears. Otherwise, you know, I wouldn't really spend the money to do this. It's 300 for a chain amplification, and you probably will spend in like 1 to at least probably like 2 million to get a chain amplification that yields you a 5. That's just the truth of the matter. So it's like one of those things. Now, how should you be equipping out your Uru in the character? Number 1, I already pointed out to you that there's one thing that Blade was down on compared to everybody else in my account, and that was basically his skill cooldown. So the first thing that I'm going to look at is just that, his skill cooldown. And this is going to be good to show you because you can see right here that there's a mythic enchantment skill cooldown reduction that I can equip to Blade. So this would be good for this character. As well, you have Odin's blessings. These are a little bit harder to come by, but some of these will also have some of those stats. So for instance, if it's a character that you absolutely love, go ahead and equip an Odin's blessing. So for instance, you can see here, I have an Odin's blessing that's physical attack and skill cooldown. It'll give him 220 skill cooldown. So I'm gonna go ahead and equip this to Blade because that's my man, right? Even though I hate that uniform, it looks terrible. So I can equip that Uru onto Blade. Now, the benefit of equipping an Odin's blessing is that they have higher stats overall, but you can only equip 1 Odin's blessing per gear. So now I can come back into the character and I can check out his detail screen here, and you notice from equipping that one, it'll increase his physical attack as well as increasing his cooldown duration, and now he's exceeded that stat by 0.8. So I've essentially capped out on all the stats that are really important to me. I hope this is making sense to you guys. If not, subscribe and ask questions in the comment section below, right? So now for this character, there's a couple of other things that I can do in order to help him out, right? And this is going to be my opinion for you guys. Now, I can't do this because I don't think have them. Let's see. So for each character that you have, you basically want to be doing one thing, and that is making sure that at the very minimum you have 2 Uru of the stat, the attack stat that is respected to them. So for instance, Blade is a physical attack character, so I want to equip 2 Uru of physical attack on each of these at a minimum. I hope that makes sense to you guys. At a minimum. Now, unfortunately, there's not going to be a lot of times where you might, well, depending on the maturity of your account, where you have all of those items available ready to you. So for instance, even my account, I've been building quite a bit of characters. I don't have all of the physical Uru necessarily to equip, but I'm going to show you what it's supposed to look like. So I've got on his 4th gear, I've got the 1 Otis Blessing. I'm going to equip 2 of these physical attack Uru onto him right here. So you can see here, I equip 2 of the physical attack. That is going to boost his Uru up overall, right? Now, I'm going to do that on as many of the amplified slots as I possibly can for this character. So essentially every uniform piece, I'm going to equip as many physical attack Uru as possible onto an amplified stat, because I want to increase his overall physical attack. Now for Blade, because I know the way the character is and his skills and his play, there's also other things that I want to do, like amplify his HP as well. So one of the stats that I'll come over here and I'll give Blade 1 HP stat over here. I don't have another slot to give that amplification to him for, so I won't do it on this one because it'd just be a waste. But on this one, I'll come over and I'll give him that amplification as well here. See how the way that works? So I'm giving him HPs on each of the ones that I can give him to help out his HP pool overall. See that? Really simple. So now I'm out of HP and physical attack Urus at the 6th slot. Now, completely up to you. You can use 5 slotted Uru and then try to amplify them later on. I just tend to wait. I already have the character maxed out in certain ways, so I'll try to generate more of those HP Urus, more of those physical attack Urus, those things to try to get the character up. So now I can come back and I can look at the way that's changing the stats on my character for his HP pools, his physical attack pools and stuff and so forth, right? So I'll come and build these out as I continue to build the character up overall, and these assets become available to me. So there's a couple of things that I want to pay attention to on Blade's specific character as I choose other Uru. Number one, when I look at Blade, I look at his passives, right? And I can look at his passives and his leadership and his skills. So this is really cool because Blade is allies with weapon master abilities. They increase all basic attacks by 60%. So that means he's going to work really well with a character like Taskmaster in support, right? So we can look at deep wounds, for instance, right here, and you can see the activation rate. When a bleed skill is used, he gets to remove all debuffs and he recovers HP equal 10% of the damage dealt to a target. He can't recover more than 3% though of the max HP inside here, right? So I can look at the character over here and I can see like, what is it that he has over here? So he's got guard break or whatever, whether or not these are using master abilities. So you can see like where his bleed damage is coming into effect, like how many skills, because it's not, they've changed this, I believe, a little bit, because it's when a bleed skill is used, it doesn't have to be effective. So every time that you see a bleed skill inside one of his abilities, it means that it's activating for each one of those, and it's a passive skill that only has a 6-second cooldown because we got the cooldown duration down to 50%. So whatever number you see there, slice it in half. So every 6 seconds, meaning that you use Blade's skill, that you can do this now, and it's going to recover that HP. But the HP is going to be equal to the 10% of the damage dealt. It's not like 10% of his overall ability. You know what I mean? Like his his overall health. When you see characters that have something like, for instance, that says recovers HP equal to 99% of their health, you know you want to max out on HP. You know you want to max out on recovery rates and things like that, because it's just going to help out the character overall. I didn't even notice Blade actually has the frenzy buff down here, and you see that when it says that since that was on 6 seconds on his passive, it also gives him the critical rate by 30%. So I didn't really need to max out the critical rate at all in that regard, right? So now when I'm looking at the character overall in here, this is going to help me define how else I want to build him inside here. So for instance, I can go back inside his Uru. At this point, take a look for the character and say, okay, what else do I really want to give the character to kind of like flesh them out more, build them up more? So for Blade, for instance, I might look at, you know, some of the recovery rate Uru. I might look at, you know, definitely going to look at increasing his HP pool chain inside here. And like realistically, that's all I need to worry about. You don't need to worry about a whole lot inside there. So you can see it really doesn't take a lot in order to fill out a character, especially when you have a really, really mature account where you can actually get a lot of the stats that are important to the game capped out in the game. Like it's not that difficult in terms of figuring out the Uru, the ISO and stuff like that. Now, if you are like at a beginner stage account, for instance, some of those frenzy buffs and things like that obviously become a lot more important to you because you're essentially looking at trying to get these numbers to caps. And if you don't have them there, you're going to basically be like, oh, well, there's 30% that he's getting from his bleed skills that, you know, he's got 5 of them. It's on a 6-second cooldown. So he's always going to have the 30% buff. So I don't need to just invest all of them, my crit rate into him to get him at 75%, because getting him at 45% is good enough because the 30% will just come from his innate abilities. That's essentially how you're looking at mitigating not having an account where everything's just well over cap because of cards and things like that you've acquired. So essentially where Blade is at, I want to build up obviously for physical attack Urus and things like that, but I don't quite have them there yet. This is something that you want to be doing for every single one of your characters. It is important that you do this for characters, especially that you take to Awakening or T3. Now that I've gotten the character all the way up to 5, I can go for an advancement. Now, if I have an advancement for a T3 ticket or something like that, you can do that. Otherwise, you're going to go inside here and you're going to make sure that you have combat books, CCF, Essence of Dimension, and Titan component packs. This one leaves me out in about 500 and 1,000. Cool. I hate this uniform. I swear to God, I dislike this uniform so much. I dislike that uniform. Blade's new uniform is definitely the bane of existence. Now, when you notice is that one of the things that you'll constantly see is players are looking at how much of a boost in terms of overall attributes is a character getting from their tier 2 to tier 3 advancement. So for instance, with Blade, you can see that he's getting nearly a 20,000 increase in physical attack, which is good for the character. You can see that he's getting almost 25,000, a little bit over 25,000 in terms of HP, which is also really good for the character. And then you can see like the physical defense and the energy defense are going up, but then you can see like you're mitigating on the attacks. This is the reason why you don't want to put Uru for a character that's not utilizing a stat like energy attack, for instance, because it doesn't make a difference to that character. This is pointless. So that's building the character up overall, right? So now, once you actually leveled out a character, it's important that you understand how do you play this character. There's going to be a couple of things I want you to be aware of. Number one, there's a page that is maintained by people inside the community, and it's really good, and that is $21,000 or something like that, right? So you can essentially come over here, you can look at it, and for instance, I can type Blade inside here, and by typing Blade, we can basically see all of his uniforms that he's had since the beginning of the game, and we can see essentially a way for the character to operate with his new uniform. So you can see it's 4, cancel 3, which is the delay, cancel into 5, and then cancel into 6 if his 6 is up. The kite until 5 is almost ready again. Let's cancel 3 when he throws the stakes. It kind of lets you know what point in the rotation you should be canceling for the characters. So the easiest way to do that is go over to the preview skills, and you can start to look at the way characters play essentially by playing out with their skills. And what I mean by this, like for instance, I can see Blade inside here. I can look at his one skill. I can see what it's doing for me in terms of there, and I can see when I could cancel the skill. So I roll into 3, he throws the stakes, right? So they want you to cancel out of 3 when he throws the stakes. So that means 3 comes up and then I can cancel right out at 3. I'm still getting the attack benefits of 3. So 4 is an easy cancel, right? Because I just immediately roll from 4, immediately roll into 3. So it's going to be 4, 3, cancel out of there when he throws the stakes, and then go into 5. I missed the proc in there. Can't believe I missed that proc. So let's do that again. So we'll basically roll into 4, 3, wait for the stakes, and then roll into 5, and then roll into 6. See how that worked out? Like really simple. You're gonna let the 6 skill. I know, for instance, that you're gonna let the 6 skill on Blade play out, because if you look at the 6 skill overall for Blade, this is where I think a lot of his damage is coming. So then normally you just roll into Kite for the character after that to get the skill back up. 3, oh, excuse me, I was supposed to go to 4. 4, 3, and 5 is his skill. Most characters in the game have really proc friendly, in my opinion, rotations or simple rotations, and the fact that, you know, all is actually 4, 3, and then roll into 5. That's it. That's all it wants me to do. That's essentially how you're playing the character overall for the majority of the time that you're playing. Kite around. 3, 4 I can cancel, and then 5 I can cancel, but you really want to go into these. So now let me pull this out so that way I can give you some ideas on how you should already be knowing what skills you should be rotating into. So for instance, when I look at Blade on his first skill, there's not a lot happening there, so more than likely there's not going to be anything. Like bleed on a character really doesn't do anything at all in this game. Then I can look at his third skill and we've got a second skill, and you see bleed, and then you see like the 70% chance of missing an attack, but it only lasts for 1 second. So it's going to be really hard to work that into a rotation unless you're using the skill to basically start or end with, right? His third skill is inside here, and you can see that it's giving super armor, it's giving 100% chance to all immunity, and it's increasing his basic attack. So it's really nice to let this skill roll into an ability to give the damage as well. His fourth skill, you can see the reason why we're rolling 4, cancel 3, then into his delay, cancel 5, is because you can see that basically he's accumulating his true damage on his fourth skill and is given an increase of all basic attacks to his skills. So we roll into 4, then we'll roll into 5, which 5 is allowing for his 20% recovery of max HP. This is good because that means that if you get the HP pool in total, he's got multiple ways to recover and restore HP, either through him using his bleed damage or just using his 5th skill. And he gets a 100% chance to increase critical damage by 50% on critical attacks. So since we've maxed out that crit rate, we should see some crit damage and crit rates hit, critical attacks hit a lot. We roll into his 6th skill, and we can see on his 6th skill, he has 50% chance to penetrate. He gets to increase all basic attacks, and then he has increased basic damage. Now, I want to point out to you that this is not an authoritative source in times of $21,000, because you'll run into certain characters who don't necessarily fit the build of what they present here, and sometimes you'll notice that there's also different rotations. These that they put on here is usually like the Reddit, you know, level of this is how you're playing a character. Typically, I will say that it's accurate, but there are other sources. Like you can look at the way Capellix or Beast Mode Gaming will play their character. So essentially, like if you were to look at like Beast Mode and Capellix play the characters, I've noticed that they use a different rotation from the ones on Dolor, where they're using 3 as an opening attack, which is a good idea because it's giving him super armor, it's increasing his basic defense, and it's making him 100% chance immune to all damage. This is a good skill because essentially by rolling into that skill, you basically guarantee that he goes into his combination without being guard broken or anything like that, especially, you know, under certain situations. Now you still roll into his 4th skill and you allow the damage to happen on his 4th skill, the accumulation to happen, and then you roll into his 5th skill, which is basically going to get that defense buff, you know, like that all defense down on the character, which is going to enable a lot of damage as well. So you can see the way that works is like 3, 4, and then you can come into 5 and then roll 6. So for instance, the way that works is basically you're coming here for the character and you would go 3, I messed that up. But you're going to let all the damage play out on the 5th skill because you can see he's really into the animations. But 3, you still be canceling as soon as he throws the stakes, and then roll into 5. So you can play this off by looking at the preview skills, because you can see over here when the buff is actually applied. So for instance, if I go with Blade and I say I'm going to use 3, I can look and I see when the stakes are thrown is when the buffs that are happening, the immunity chance, is actually being applied. So if I go in here, I can see that the iframe is up that I'm getting, and I can see the buff apply. So I can cancel out of 3 as soon as that buff is applied, go into 4, and now I'm looking for when 4. 4 doesn't have, the buffs are immediately applied at the very beginning of 4. So you can see there, as soon as I cast 4, the buffs are up, right? So I basically rolled 3, 4, buffs are immediately up, and that allows me to roll into 5. 5 immediately plays out for all of the damage. So either way, you kind of end in 5 in terms of whether you go 4, 3, and then 5, or whether you go 3, 4, 5, and then let everything play out in 6. You see that? Like, essentially that's the way you're playing the character off the most. So it's either going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, or it's going to be 4, 3, 5, 6, and that's the way you're essentially playing the character, by playing to its strengths in the game. Because basically 5, with the damage that he has from the defense down and the 100% chance increase to recovery, you're going to constantly come back to here. Now you can play 2 and 1 into there a little bit, because 2 does have a bleed effect on it. 1 also has a bleed effect on it. So you're going to get the rejuvenation, the recovery of that ability as well from there because of his passive. That is essentially, guys, how you're playing out a character, how you should be building out characters overall in this game to make them as successful as possible. You also want to make sure that you're pairing up characters well with teams. It's really, really important that you understand that just because you create a character doesn't mean that you jump in giant boss raid and automatically you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna fucking play Blade with, you know, let me think, like I'm gonna play Blade with like a perfect example, the Ancient One. There's no point in me going to my teams and being like, hey, I'm gonna put Ancient One on the same team as Blade. It doesn't make any sense, because then I got Blade, and like this team right here wouldn't make any sense. Like Blade being here with Scarlet Witch, maybe, because I think she actually has the Weapon Master. Nope, she doesn't have it. I thought she had the Weapon Master ability, but she doesn't have this. So a good team up for Blade, for instance, would be to utilize him with Taskmaster, because Taskmaster pairs off really well with him. If I could find Taskmaster inside my list, haven't used this character in forever, but this is going to increase his value, because basically Taskmaster's abilities say overall, like if you were to look at his passive, this applies to allies with Weapon Master. He's going to increase the guaranteed critical rate by 20%. He's also going to increase the ignore targets dodge rate by 20%, and he's going to increase skill damage by 25% and increase bonus skill damage. That's all allies with the Weapon Master abilities. And you can literally look inside the characters to see who has the Weapon Master ability inside them right there. So he will always, more than likely in this current meta, be paired with Blade, because Blade's probably the more powerful of the Weapon Master classes. And then you're basically looking at giving them another buff in somebody like, you know, Sif, for instance, who could give, you know, a passive ability. For instance, where's hers? I thought she had a passive ability in here that maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I thought Sif had the passive ability as well. But essentially that's what you're looking at for the cat. Oh, you know what I think it is? I think it's her uniform that has the passive ability. Let me take a look real quick. Yeah, so it's to all allies. She has the bonus over here where she increases the basic damage to boss types as well. So it's on her uniform. So you can basically look at the way a character plays in this regard. Now, I'll be happy to break this down further for you guys. If you want over time, let me know in the comment section below. Make sure that you're subscribing. I appreciate you sticking around. I hope that this content has helped you in building out your characters for Marvel Future Fight. Until next time, peace.